If you have multiple computers in your home lab and you want to control them via remote KVM, you don't need to buy multiple remote KVMs. You just need only one. How? By connecting a KVM switch in the mix. This has 4 inputs. But what happens if you need more than 4? Then you connect another KVM switch in the mix. And all of this is much cheaper than the pre-built ones. Later, we will add a microcontroller to the mix with ESP Home and Home Assistant, so the switches can be controlled remotely. All of this will be powered from a PoE splitter, so everything's from one Ethernet cable. There will be 2 parts to this build. In this part we'll build the backbone, the hardware. Let me walk you through how to make all of this happen. Hello world and welcome. First, let's talk about what's already on the market. There are already enterprise options, but they're out of the budget. From consumer side, I could only find a PiKVM, which has an additional switch as an option. But the price for that is around 650 euros with taxes plus shipping, but only for 4 computers, 4 inputs. For that price, mostly it's out of reach. So let's make a more affordable way. Yes, my setup will not have an ATX, remote power and reboot, but I will fix that on some day later. Now, why do you need a remote KVM? If you have one or multiple computers in your home lab, then sometimes access to a monitor with a keyboard and mouse is necessary, like for reinstalling your operating system, BIOS access, network driver issues like Realtek, troubleshooting a broken operating system, or just shut down or reboot the host. Idea of the project is to make this budget friendly, modular, expandable in the future, and not tied to one company. This comes from Sipeed, this comes from some Chinese company, this from another one, and this from Expressive. To recreate this project, you can use other hardware. I will use for remote KVM this Sipeed Nano KVM. You can use GL iNet Comet or JetKVM, PiKVM, whatever. For KVM switches, everything that has physical buttons for every port. I2 square would be better, but that's very rarely. LED indicators per port would be welcome, and a full USB port, 2.1, 3.1, whatever. If you choose a different hardware, then the power usage, wiring and soldering points, that will be later on, will be different from my setup. Now, let's start to build it. So, we will go baby steps. First, I will use a Sipeed Nano KVM full. You can check its review on Level 1 Techs. I will have a link in the description. Now, to get started, it's pretty simple. You just connect your HDMI to the KVM, remote KVM, sorry, and the host, your USB cable to the KVM and to the host, and Ethernet for connecting all of that, and power everything on, and bada bing bada boom, you have access to your monitor, keyboard and mouse remotely. Just log into your KVM and now you have access to your remote host, but that's only for one. Your KVM is powered from your host computer, But if your host computer goes down, then you can power this model from auxiliary USB power. So I will power it from this PoE splitter with 5-volt output. I accidentally purchased the power output with DC jack 5.5 millimeter, so I just changed it to USB-C. This will definitely void your warranty. If you want to do that, check your cable if it can hold the needed power. I tested mine with 3 amps. This PoE splitter can output 2.4 amps. Why I tested my cable with 3 amps? Well, better safe than sorry. I've tested this exact model with different power outputs, checked the voltage drops, did a thermal imaging, and so on and so forth. You can check the video up here and in the description. That will be useful further on. When you need access to multiple computers, you just add a KVM switch in between. So this KVM switch has 4 inputs, HDMI and USB, HDMI out, a USB-C 5-volt input, and a power switch. On the other side, we have 4 controllable buttons, and there is a output for this kind of extension, but I don't need that. And you have full 4 USB ports. You can connect a thumb drive or whatever to a selected PC directly. For this demo, I will use this USB hub as a power distribution from a PoE. A little bit jank, but just for the demo. Talking about power, this switch can be powered in 2 ways. One is the 5-volt input, and the second is from your host computers. So you don't need a extra 5-volt input. In my case, I want to power it from the external power. Why? In that case, I can power cycle it from my network switch if something hangs. Talking about hanging, I have used this KVM switch almost 1 year and sometimes it hangs. It stops working and I need to power cycle it. Well, it only cost 50 euros with shipping. That was on this older model, which was made in 2023. They have a newer version with controls and USB-C additionally. That is 2025. Maybe it will not hang, so I have no idea. I have tested it for only a few weeks and I haven't had any issues with it. So, as I said before, it has 2 input powers, the external and from the computers. That means I need to disable the power from the computers. So for that, I just added a Kapton tape to 5-volt pin. You can do that or not, it's up to you. I just want one power source so I can cycle it from my switch. So what do we have? PoE splitter that is connected to my network switch, which is powering the USB hub, which is just for power distribution, and from that it's powering remote KVM and the KVM switch. So why do we actually need the auxiliary ports as additional input? We could just power it from a USB port. Well, That's a problem. These USB ports are powered cycle. So let me show you. It is powered, everything's cool, but when we change the input, it power cycles it. So that means every time you change your input, it would cycle the power for the remote KVM, which isn't perfect, and you can get corrupted files on the KVM itself because it's running Linux distribution on it. So that's why we need auxiliary. If you're using something that doesn't have auxiliary, like this Sipeed Nano KVM Lite, then you can use a USB splitter that one has power, the second has the data pins, as in the old days with phones. How it's all wired up. So the KVM, its keyboard and mouse inputs goes here as our input. The backend, the input from our computer output goes to remote KVM, and we have power. And that's all. It pretty much works. So just switch and you have 4 computers. Now let's say you're full on the input ports. You have 4 connected and you need more, you need the 5th, or you purchased more computers. At that point you just add another KVM switch in the chain. If you already have a Homelab with multiple computers, like more than 4, then you can buy a KVM switch which has 8 ports or 16 ports, and then you can chain them up together. The idea that it is modular. If you need, you can add more to it. Yeah, there are going to be a little bit more latency, but more or less we're using them only when some maintenance is needed. So by chaining them up together, you will lose additional 1 port. So we won't have 8 ports, we'll have 7 ports, because we're chaining the output to the input. So we lose 1 port. Interesting project so far. Get subscribed and share. Thanks. Now for connecting the second switch in the chain, it's simple and easy. So let's just change our host computer to the second KVM, let's say on port 3. We have our output HDMI and our USB cable. So I did the same with the USB port. I used Captain tape to disable the power, so this KVM won't feed this one. You can do that or no, it's up to you. So connect that on the input, HDMI output on input here. And why did I remove this? The KVM stays where it is on the first switch, and we will need power. And that's all. This we have port number 4, and on this we have port number 3. Now let's take a look. I will show you real time, so like I'm not fooling you. So this is our login, and here we have our Fedora on our remote box. So if I switch the input, you see that all of this stops. So it doesn't refresh because there's no input. If you refresh the page, it will be just black. If I switch it back on the KVM switch, it appears and everything's working. Now let's talk about console. Now let's talk about power consumption. When everything is connected and I'm not checking the remote from the web browser, it's around 0.7 amps on 5 volts. When I go to the remote, then it goes to 0.75, around that. So we can power all of this from one cable. Now, as I said before, we have USB ports, so we can just add a USB to it if we need to the selected computer. Now our power is a little bit more than 1 amp, so around. Let's copy a file from the USB drive to the host. And it goes to 1.25 to 1.3 amps. Let's call it 1.3 amps. As you know, if you checked the video about this PoE splitter, it can't. Like, it's 2.4 amps, but in the case it's not gonna happen. It will burn itself down. So I'm going to remove the casing from the PoE splitter. Now I removed it, so I've tested it without the case, and I know I can push 1.5 amps, maybe 2 amps, but not more than that. So let's add something bigger. Not a thumb drive, but a NVMe drive. Well, what happens? So check the light. When we connect it, it power cycles it, and it's 1.6 amps, and there is no output. So yeah, again, it power cycles it. So that means the voltage went so low in the review about the PoE splitter that it just can't. So it is 3.3 volts, 2.2 amps. So that means this will draw 7.3 watts. If we recalculate it to 5 volt, then it wants almost 1.5 amps. It's not gonna cut it. So this is a no-go. So I added my Toshiba drive, and the power on their website is, I think it was 4.1 watt, so less than power hungry Samsung. So let's see what's gonna happen. Nope, it power cycles. So this is a no-go. So the only option is USB thumb drives. If you power it from different inputs, not from one cable as I'm doing it, then yeah, you can surely add a NVMe drive and power it like that. Forgot to add about the power. You need to understand how much your PoE output can handle, and you need to monitor your power from your PoE splitter if you're going this route. Next stage to this project will be to add a ESP microcontroller to remotely control all the ports and see which are active. I need to get some final components, currently working on that. Yeah, leave a comment. What do you think about this project? I will have the used product affiliate links in the description if you want to replicate this project. So on part 2, microcontroller, and we'll open these boxes and do all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thanks. Bye.